Let's now talk more about this. Let me bring in my guest, Mr. Victor Gao, our current affair commentator. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, the session concentrated on anti-corruption campaign. What has been achieved in this regard, and how have they boosted the anti-corruption campaign?
Well, over the past several years, there have been complaints about either the anti-corruption campaign has been too long overdrawn and having a negative impact on the economic development, or criticisms that the anti-corruption campaign have only been addressing individual corrupt officials rather than bringing institutionalized reform. Now, I think the decision announced just now by the sixth plenary session strongly indicates that the party is very determined in institutionalizing checks and balances to prevent corruption from happening in the first place. And whenever corruption is detected, punitive measures will be brought in on an institutionalized basis rather than on an individual basis. Previously, anti-corruption campaigns have been launched many times, but each time it was on and off, and eventually corrupt officials believed that the anti-corruption campaign would only be piecemeal rather than systematic and institutionalized. So I think this really is a landmark decision setting apart this round of anti-corruption campaign, which will be carried out forever, if I may use that word, on a sustainable basis and on an institutionalized basis, rather than on a piecemeal basis, on a fragmented basis, on a case-by-case basis. This is a transition in the anti-corruption campaign.
Now, before I get to my next question, I want to also talk to our reporter who's standing by live in Beijing, and I'll get back to you for my next question. Our Tang Bo is standing by for us in Beijing. Tang Bo, do you have... All right, thanks for joining us there, Tang Bo. What has been attracting or capturing the global media's attention during the sixth plenary session? Talk to us a little bit more on this.
What the global media has been mainly expecting is what the plenum means for China for the next 5 years. The plenary session this time is important since it's expected to accelerate the process for the preparation of the 19th Party Congress next year, when 5 of the 7 members of the Politburo Standing Committee, except for President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Keqiang, will have to step down, having reached the retirement age of 68. So the meeting is expected to provide some idea as to what may happen in the next 12 months and which 5 persons may become the new members of the Politburo Standing Committee. The 19th Party Congress in 2017 may indicate China could develop during the second half of Xi Jinping's presidency, and thus the current plenum should throw some light on the directions of progress, politics and development during the next 5 years. Now, the Central Committee has already released a communique addressing key issues in terms of comprehensive and proper management of the party, new norms for intra-party political life, and the revised regulations for intra-party supervision for anti-corruption. And tomorrow there will be a press conference where some more detailed information about what has been achieved and what has been discussed on at the plenum will be released. Joanne.
Now, we were talking about the anti-corruption campaign back there, and since President Xi Jinping took office in 2013, China has been engaging in this intense anti-corruption campaign. But how has this been addressed at the meeting, and what's likely to happen next?
Well, indeed, 2 documents, one on the norms of political life within the party under the new situation and a revision to an intra-party supervision regulation, have been reviewed at the 4-day meeting. The new situation refers to the ongoing anti-corruption campaign and the drive against lazy officials. So a Pew Research survey conducted earlier this month found out that nearly 50% of the Chinese public believe corrupt officials constitute a very big problem for the country, and 83% said that corruption was a moderately big problem. So to tackle all these problems, the party is likely to strengthen party political life by requiring very strict adherence to the party's constitution, regulations and political code of conduct. And that means in the future there will be more severe punishments to officials who are considered corrupt, and thereby sending a very strong message of a strict discipline. Joanne.
All right, many thanks, Tang Bo, joining us live in Beijing. Appreciate your report. So, Victor, what also made news today is that a statement was released after the 4-day meeting today. What does it say about the country's political future development?
I think China will be able to achieve higher and more sustainable development only by maintaining domestic stability. And maintaining domestic stability will also depend very much on stability and innovation within the Communist Party of China, which is the ruling party here with about 87 million party members. Therefore, I think the sixth plenary session has achieved a very important goal of spelling out in detail the anti-corruption requirements. Previously, I think the presumption would always be that if you are promoted to an important party or government position, you are a man of innocence, you are a man of capability, and there is not necessary to institutionalize a lot of checks and balances against you. This is no longer the case. I think the checks and balances, the scrutiny, the vetting of the party officials need to be done front-loaded. And the presumption may be if you have too much concentration of power, power corrupts, and absolute power will corrupt absolutely. So we need to build up the barriers with beefed up institutionalized checks and balances to avoid and prevent and eventually penalize corruption. And I think this actually changes the paradigm of modus operandi in China for the party members, and this will really bring in greater solidarity within the Communist Party, greater sustainability and stability within the party, and it will spill over to the greater domestic political stability and social stability. This bodes well for the sustainable efforts in China on the economic front, because the economic development and political reform will be going on hand in hand. People normally would say that China has a lot of economic reform, economic development at the expense of political reform. Look at what the sixth plenary session is doing. This is political reform in real essence of the word.
All right, many thanks. Thanks for coming in, Victor.
Thank you.